the curve of the Earth, and the sky got darker the higher I got. It's like, no, you can't see the curve, bro. We have weather balloons that go up 120,000 feet. We have cameras going up 120,000 feet, flat horizons. It's not flat at 120 and then curved at 90. And they always mention it. It's always so conspicuous that they have to mention how they see it. And then Jimmy Kimmel says, and he said this multiple times over the years, and again, these are actors. They're given scripted lines, so they're conveying these things for a reason. For years, he's been saying that he likes to go out on his back porch, which overlooks a beach, and he likes to look at the curved horizon. And if you can see boats go over the horizon, by the way, and the horizon line is still flat, what does that tell you? If a boat goes over the hump, but it's flat from left to right, from 0 to 120,000 feet, as far as we know, then it means that the world's a barrel, not a ball. If it's going over a hump and it's flat side to side, if your horizontal horizon is just completely level, left to right, and yet your boats are supposedly going over, then either they're not going over and they're disappearing from your point of view because you can't see forever, the limits of the human optics, or you live on a barrel, like a barrel shape. Which is it? The evidence that the defenders of the accepted model cite is childish and lazy and sloppy. And so I'm just saying, hey, look, you ought to be doing experiments. And as far as the other side, you're not going to debunk the spinning ball from within it to the believers in it. You're really not. I mean, the Bedford level experiment could have settled it. These things have already made the case. These are repeatable experiments. On the other side, they have, well, Lake Pontchartrain, if you get a certain camera and take a picture from a certain angle at a certain time of the day, you get the impression of there being what appears to be a curve. It's like, that's not good enough. It has to be repeatable again and again. And we have infrared video. We have infrared footage of mountain peaks 500 miles away from an airplane 30,000 feet up. And I have people defending that to me, and I'm like thinking, don't you understand how the curve 8 inches per mile squared would have these mountains looking if they were 500 miles away, even from that height? So anyway, I don't waste my time with this. You could do a laser experiment if you could find a way to prevent the laser from diffusing. You could do a laser experiment at 100 miles, 200 miles, 300 miles. It's not going to debunk for the believers. You know, um, you know, Anybody in air defense artillery who's ever worked with these surface-to-air missile, short-range air defense artillery involving, the Patriot missile system, they don't even know that they work on a flat model. Every time they go out to their training sites and paint up targets at 100 miles plus. I mean, White Sands, New Mexico isn't like the only flat place. You think you'd go there because it's flat and you could do these things for distance. Well, yeah, it is. It's very, it's very suited for these long-range experiments. But no, that's the thing. There is no curve and they don't account for it. And that's a place where, all the people in that particular field, in the course of their training, they have worked on a flat model without accounting for curvature. So, as far as I'm concerned, nothing's going to change what the scripted, fake, prostitute scientists are saying. You're not going to walk into a church and tell them that they have it all wrong. You think you're going to go into a church service? I mean, that's not the time. Some will debate, a small percentage outside of church, certainly not on a Sunday, certainly not in front of other believers. I mean, people don't like having their faith challenged. You're not going to walk in and challenge it while it's going on. Just like, you know how touchy it is to call out a psychological operation in process. People say, can't you at least wait until we got the full body count before you call it fake? It's like, you see, because they're in the middle of a service. You have to understand that church is the old school mainstream media. And it's about mediation. It's about filtering all of your perceptions. And the people who believe in the standard model are having their perceptions filtered real time, molded real time. That's why you have a hard time getting through to them. That's why experiments that challenge their model have no effect, because they're not in an objective state. They're in a state of worship. They're in a state of filtration, of having they're being spoon fed. They're not getting any information firsthand. It's not being processed through their own critical faculties. Brainwashees, Tide Potters. It's pretty interesting to watch. How people handle losing faith in their experts, and how you'll see what happens. It's one of two things. When people lose faith in their experts, they either place that faith in themselves and seize the means of perception for themselves. They think critically for themselves, and they essentially become free thinkers. That's what one group does when they lose faith in experts. But then the others, probably the majority, look for another set of experts. Oh, well, these guys got it wrong. Let me go to these guys. These are the types who will jump from religion to religion. Oh, I used to watch Fox, now I watch CNN, now I'm alternative, now I'm independent media. It's like, well, hey, when you went from left to right to alternative to independent, you never left the arena of bad ideas. And like, people who leave bad relationships and move into other bad relationships, it's because they haven't learned to operate on their own, and so they're constantly gravitating towards these dynamics where they are in fact a slave, or for all intents and purposes, a I guess slave's probably the best word. I mean, I hate to say it, but a lot of people are slaves to their media pundits, their priests, their politicians, their professors, all the ones who molded their minds. You could say that Truman in the Truman Show movie was a slave. And who is he a slave to? Well, all the people around him who lied, who told him lies, creating this sense of limitations so that he never asked certain questions and never ventured beyond certain parameters. And that's what this thing's about anyway. It's about parameters. I don't think it has, I could care less, shape doesn't, I mean, look, from our perspective, even on the moon, if you were to go live on the moon and the moon was the size that they say it is, even then, it would still appear to be flat and stationary from you being on it. You're not going to feel it move. We're too small. I mean, they really did screw up the Apollo footage. If you still believe the Apollo footage is real, you're just, I mean, I'm sorry, it's corny, but it's fake. It's eminently debunkable. It may not have been 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but now even the casual onlooker can see it. Kids are debunking it every day. They go to these field trips in DC, they see the lunar lander, they're laughing at it. Kind of like the way you as a kid may have laughed at the dinosaur films that your parents might have watched when they were kids, where it's obvious that they're fighting against a creature on a screen being projected. It's obviously they're not in the same, it's claymation, right? That's the reason why they're bringing the space station down. They're bringing the space station down because they can no longer maintain the integrity of the illusion when everyone else's computer software, editing software, I'm talking like in Hollywood and even what private citizens have, it's actually better than what they have up there. It's better than what NASA has. So they can't suddenly improve the CGI environment on the ISS and suddenly start doing more tricks or more elaborate experiments because it would be too obvious. You know how many, we have dozens. Look, if you believe in the moon landing, you're lazy and you never looked into it. If you still think the ISS is up there, you just haven't looked into it. Look up ISS green screen. How many times have you seen these astronauts fade in and fade out like ghosts? Or how many times have you seen them put the same astronauts, or rather different astronauts in the same room, but when they're putting them in their green screen environment, they don't scale them properly. So, like there's one room in particular where the astronauts all look like they're, between, 5.5, 6 feet tall. And then they bring in another astronaut in that same room, and the guy's got to be like 8 feet tall. Like the scale is off. And there are so many of these things. There are so many examples like this that the burden of proof, I think, has already been presented. The ISS is a government movie. It's a propaganda flick. That's all it is. Anyone who says otherwise is just hasn't, they don't have enough information to claim that they know it to be up there. That's something else. We're talking about burden of proof, and something else that I think it's important to do is to not claim to know things we cannot know. So if you accept the standard model, you think the sun's 93 million miles away. I don't know how far it is. I don't have that answer. And I'm saying that you don't have enough information to know it to be that far. You've taken it on faith, and it's the same thing with the space station. You've never seen it. Maybe you know somebody who says they've seen it, or maybe you know someone who claims that they saw it on YouTube passing in front of the moon at the exact second that NASA said it would be there. And, more likely, it's just Occam's razor. The people who are presenting ISS transit footage are faking it. There's a guy who says he saw Starman, which, according to Elon Musk, is 88 million miles away because it missed its mark. It didn't hit Mars. 88 million miles away, playing the song Starman on an infinite loop. I mean, that's what they're saying. That's what it's supposedly doing. But anyway, this guy has a telescope. He takes the trajectory he was given, he makes some calculations, and he takes a picture and then he circles a little white dot saying, "That's Starman." Like, I don't believe it. And here's why it's important, okay? If the moon landing was fake, then what does that say about all of the scientific data we got from this? All of the experiments, all of the physics, all the mathematics that it validated. It validated a fake system is what it did. And these systems are internally consistent. Until you step outside and take a look at the fourth wall. What are they presenting you but a carefully scripted lie? So what's going to reveal the lie isn't what they've scripted. What's going to reveal it is what they don't show you that's conspicuously absent, the things they got wrong. Because you can go through the moon landing and you can find so many examples of photographic evidence that, oh, that's not the sun, that's a stage light. These shadows don't match. But your answer is also going to be found in what they presented that was just straight up wrong, like Earthrise, or the scale of the Earth versus the scale of the moon. I mean, look, you can get your binoculars and you can look at features on the moon that are said to be 50 miles across. So you're looking at an object that's said to be 238,000 miles away, and you're looking at a crater 50 miles in diameter. Now, from the moon, looking at the Earth, which would still be presumably 238,000 miles away, there are no features 50 miles across that can be discerned. Like, it's not there. But anyway, the space station is even worse because what does that suggest? If the space station isn't up there, then what about all the different missions from SpaceX? From Dragon, the crafts that sent up to the astronauts their monkey suits, guitars, iPods, their football jerseys, and their footballs, and occasionally what sciencey stuff. So it would make a liar out of SpaceX, is what it would do. I was wondering too, how come the space station didn't, I don't know, get a video of Starman passing by? And look at the Starman footage again. There are so many bubbles in that thing. There shouldn't be bubbles in space, and there are so many bubbles. That's the one thing I didn't see a lot of people talking about. There was the fake synchronized landing of the two rockets that looks like a cartoon, and they edited the live footage after the fact because there was a glitch. So that's fake. We caught that one. The car is obviously not in space, but even if you accept that it was, and you accept that footage is real, you would have to accept a few things like the bubbles. And they didn't prepare it in any special way. Those tires should have exploded. The plastic toy on the dashboard should have melted. Okay, so CNN publishes fake news story about Judge Kavanaugh. Look, fake news is a misnomer. Fake news is a misnomer because when they talk about fake news, they just mean partisan. But they will not call psyops out. So fake news is there to distract you from actual fabricated propaganda inserted into your nightly news.